Good morning. Welcome to Bellingham Unitarian Fellowship. I'm Reverend Paul Beckel. Let's just take a big sigh. Maybe for you, that was a sigh of relief after a tough week. And now being here in a place that's warm and dry. Maybe it was a sigh of acceptance, just coming to terms with what is. Or maybe a sigh of delight. Or maybe you weren't sure why you sighed, but afterward you realize you have a body and breathing feels good. Let's try that again. Letting it all out can be calming, and it's worth trying every now and again. Today I'm grateful to welcome Freddie Lane, a member of the Lummi Nation, to share his thoughts on Native American heritage. Let's begin with an acknowledgement of our presence on and shared responsibility for these lands, waters, and skies. And there was a little piece of paper being handed out. I don't know if everyone got one, but let's say together, we acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of the Lummi and Nooksack peoples. Their presence is imbued in these mountains, valleys, waterways, and shorelines. May we nurture our relationship with our Coast Salish neighbors and the shared responsibilities to their homelands where we all reside today. We kindle this flame atop this chalice to symbolize our grounding in community, our ongoing openness to new inspiration and new people we can share the journey with, and our courage to dance now into the flaming unknown. And let's say together our covenant. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service gives it life. Celebrating our diversity and joined by a quest for truth, we work for peace and honor all creation. This is our covenant. Our gathering song is written and sung by Issei Barnwell, who was part of a group called Sweet Honey in the Rock, an African-American soul-ish, primarily a cappella group. Beautiful. Let's try to match their soul.
as we stand and sing, number 151 in the Teal hymnal. 51. 1051. 1051.
One more time.
Thank you, Liz. And I would like to invite the children forward for a story. Or I'll come to you. It's gonna happen. This is called The Secret of Saying Thanks. And it's not just about saying thank you out loud. It's also about just what you feel inside when you're thankful. Thankful is like when, one example is when somebody does something nice for you and you feel like, oh, that's wonderful. I want to tell you somehow how wonderful that is. And you can do it with your words, but you can also do that with your actions. You can be nice back, or you could maybe be nice to somebody else. One's called paying it back, and the other one's called paying it forward. And paying it forward is a wonderful way to show your thanks. So, perhaps you'd like to know a secret, one of the happiest of them all. You will surely find it for yourself one day. You'll discover it all on your own, maybe when you least expect it. Because maybe you're feeling thankful because of something somebody did, but maybe you're just feeling, you don't even know how to explain it. Just realize what a wonderful world this is, or how fortunate you are to have people and a place to stay, people who love you. You might discover the secret at dawn, a morning seeming like every other morning. And the sun comes up, and you feel, thank you, sun. You might not be able to say thank you, sun, but you can just feel it inside. Or you can say it. It's wonderful to just shout out, thank you, sun. You're so warm and bright.
That's just silly.
That's maybe silly, but you will be amazed sometimes when you try it. Thank you for the gift of a new day. And maybe you'll notice, well, in this picture, there's both flowers. Maybe you'll notice a flower. There's also a dog. All these things in the world that can make us happy and make us feel that, well, when I'm with my dog, I feel like I am kind of part of him. I just feel like I'm part of something bigger than myself. And with the flowers, too, and the trees. Yeah, and that's the next picture. It's about laying under a tree and just feeling happy and grateful because you're in the shade, or you see how the tree grows, or you see how the tree feeds the ground with all of its falling leaves. Or maybe you're sitting on a rock somewhere and you say, thank you, rock. It is not at all silly to say thank you to a rock.
It is.
So, I mean, especially,
See, everybody laugh.
well, and I'm guessing it's because some people are thinking, laughing because you don't understand, and others are laughing because they totally agree with you. So, maybe you're sitting on the rock looking up at the mountains, and you feel thankful because, oh, life is so busy. There's so much going on. But mountain, you're there all the time. I can really count on you to be there.
That's funny.
You might find the secret when you hear a bird sing, and you're grateful for the gentle music of the skies and their pretty feathers. You might feel thankful when you're with family or anybody else and having a meal together. This page uses the word grateful. Grateful is the same thing as thankful. It's like something's great and it just fills you up somehow. So remember grateful that way. And maybe you don't even realize that that's the same as thankful. And when you feel that way, you can say thank you. So sometimes you'll feel it because someone holds your hand or kisses away your tears or hugs you or reads you a story or tucks you into bed at night. Because the secret is the heart that gives thanks is a happy one. We cannot feel thankful and unhappy at the same time. The more we say thanks, the more we find to be thankful for. And the more we find things to be thankful for, the happier we become. So sometimes you have to look around to see what you might feel thankful for. Sometimes things, sometimes people, sometimes just a feeling. And then you'll find out that we don't just say thank you because we're happy. We also become happier when we say thank you. So that's the end of our story for today, and you're going to go off to your classrooms as we sing.
Liz Epperson. I'm the UU Religious Exploration or Education Coordinator here at Buff. I just wanted to share that in November, upstairs, the children have been learning about the different tools we use as UUs to repair. We talked about repairing loss with memory. We have a memory tree upstairs if you want to come see. We talked about repairing not having a say with democracy and made I voted stickers some of you got a few weeks ago. Today we're going to talk about repairing lies with truth-telling, and we will be centering Native American voices around culture and experiences and a little bit about Thanksgiving and the lies that I can speak for myself, I grew up with, and how telling the truth is one of the ways we repair the pain, the misunderstanding, and the things that we used to think were true in history that aren't true, so that we can deepen relationships with each other. So, thank you. Oh, and we will be building blanket forts, so if you want to come, yeah. And we'll be reading stories written by Native Americans, some from the Lummi and Nooksack tribes here, and getting cozy in a blanket fort. So come on up if you want to say hello.
Thanks. For those of you here for the first time, or who didn't have the nerve to come to coffee hour the first time you were here, come on down. Right outside those doors and down the stairs, we join for coffee hour and today for a potluck lunch. Whether you brought something or not, hope to see you there. There's always more than enough. And it's a great way to get to know Buff is through Buffsters. And now, Lynn has an announcement.
Good morning. I am here as one of the members of the Buff Community Fundraising Committee, which all sounds really exciting, doesn't it? Yes. So we have this idea that we would like to tell more people what it is that we do. And what we do is generate basically ideas for how to keep the lights on, as my friend Drew said. And so this is what we want to do. We want to have a happy hour where we talk about fundraising and where we get ideas from the people who come to the happy hour. So it's going to be, we're going to have two different ones, and they're going to be small. So like 10 people in each one, so that we can really kind of get to know each other and have a good time. And really, we're like not gonna keep you prisoner or anything. We just want your ideas. So the first one is gonna be Wednesday, December 4th at 4 o'clock from 4 to 5, right before the community dinner. So, you know, it works, right? It's happy hour, and then it's dinner. And the second one is going to be January 4th, January 11th, which is a Saturday, and it's also going to be from 4 to 5. So, and you need to sign up for these. And so if you come and see me at the potluck today, right after the service, I have my little clipboard, and we can get you all signed up, and you'll give us your phone number, and then we'll remind you so that you can come. Okay. Thank you.
Lynn, I'm guessing either you have or you'd allow me to put that in the midweek update so that people can, or is it already? Oh, okay, super.
For those of you who aren't getting it, is our weekly electronic newsletter. Will be emailed every Wednesday afternoon. If you'd like to subscribe, go to buff.org.
My name's Tom Nicholas, and I'm on the Adult RE Committee, and I just want to make a brief announcement that 2 weeks from today, after the coffee hour at 12 o'clock, there's going to be a grief workshop. I'm calling it a workshop because I can't think of a better word. It's just going to be a one-time only session where for people who have lost someone close to them, maybe recently, maybe further back in the past. And the emphasis is just going to be on exploring what the experience of grief was like for you. We can read books about it and read theories about grief, but what did it actually feel like for you? What did you go through? So if you feel like that would be a meaningful thing for you to talk about with other people who've gone through something similar, please come to the workshop. It's 2 weeks from today, December 8th, about 12 o'clock up in the Flex room. And you can register for it on the Buff website, and if you have questions about how to do that, you can just ask me. Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll make sure there's information about it in the midweek update, too.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me all right? No? There we go. At the beginning of today's service, we read together the land acknowledgement of our Coast Salish neighbors, and we acknowledge that this land is a traditional territory of the Lummi and Nooksack people. And then we ended with a statement, may we nurture our relationship with our Coast Salish neighbors and the shared responsibility to their homelands where we all reside today. Those of you new to Buff or have not been aware of all the ways that the Native American Connections Committee and Buff have lived up to nurturing our relationships with our Coast Salish neighbors and to our shared responsibility to their homelands, I'm not sure if I can do justice to the last 20 years that we have been working in this congregation with the community and with Lummi Nation, Nooksack, and Coast Salish peoples. My husband and I moved to Bellingham in 2004. I had been working with Lakota, Dakota, Chippewa, and Anishinaabe nations and peoples for over 30 years in the Midwest. When I came to Bellingham, I asked permission from Lummi and Nooksack nations if I could facilitate courses, but use tribal members to do the teaching. I would be the facilitator. And so for 4 years, session every year with 5 to 6 different sessions during each one, we had topics on, about 50 people came to each class. And people were hungry. It was like a desert. Washington was a desert. People didn't know the people that lived next to them or across the bay from them. And so people came just hungry to learn. And so we had courses on contemporary American issues and challenges, Lummi, Nooksack, and Swinomish nations, Coast Salish art and culture, and Lummi institutions and cultures. And so the class didn't learn just about the history. They met real people in real time in their lives. Instead of most of the courses about Coast Salish peoples go back to the time immemorial, talking about the people that lived here long ago. But they actually learned about current life situations. And in 2006, word of Lummi hosting the next tribal canoe journey in 2007, I met Freddie Lane, and we organized a small group of people from Buff and from the community to work with Lummi Nation to support them hosting the event. So Freddie was the chair of the committee and planning that event, and we had a representative every time that they met out at Lummi to take notes and find out what they needed, and we would see if we could supply that. For example, fresh fruits and vegetables, canned goods and supplies for canoe families, cold water survival training, support boats, hundreds of volunteers, bleachers on the beaches for landing. It went on the list of what we tried to provide. And in total, in 2006 and 7, we raised $80,000 in goods and services that went to Lummi for supporting that event. And before the week-long event at Lummi, we planned with the mayor of Bellingham and the Parks and Recreation Director an official honoring of Lummi Nation at Boulevard Park. Silver saw in Belcourt, who was Blackfoot, Rochelle Rasmussen Sandine McCaw wrote the first official acknowledgement of the first peoples of these lands and waters that had never been said or officially acknowledged in a beautiful proclamation. There was a huge crowd in attendance in Boulevard Park for the landing of 7 canoes. And then there were members from the City Council, the County Council, the Lummi Tribal Council. There were speakers of politicians, and we had letters, official letters on official statements from everyone from the governor all the way down with all the politicians, local, national politicians. And the canoe families were fed, and then cultural sharing and speeches began. The crowd cruised craft displays, and they bought fry bread or food prepared by tribal members. But following, that was on 7707 that we had this in Boulevard Park, but then on July 30th, my birthday, there were 100 canoes landing at Lummi Nation. And hundreds of volunteers to the county showed up. Many came for one shift, but returned day after day and did whatever was asked of them. The experience was transforming both for Lummi and for the community, and ripples from that collaboration still exist today of people who went there, and then in 2019 also, Lummi hosted another canoe journey. Our next effort was to introduce the doctrine of discovery to congregants at Buff and to work to reach 90 Unitarian Universalist congregations in the district. And 2 years were spent contacting them, sending them information, and it was a hard sell. No one had heard of the doctrine of discovery. Who is this woman calling us? And they call the church, do you know a Beth Brownfield who's calling us about the doctrine of discovery we don't know anything about? Anyway, we reached out to the UU Board of Trustees in 2012 who were planning the 2013 General Assembly. And we're telling them about the doctrine of discovery when we found out that the Planning Committee in Phoenix also had met someone who told them about the doctrine of discovery, and they decided that the Board of Trustees would put forth a resolution that the body at the General Assembly would vote on. And they did vote on it, and it passed almost unanimously, and we were the second religious denomination in the whole country that had repudiated the doctrine of discovery. Yeah, okay.
Briefly tell us, what is the doctrine of discovery?
Oh, the doctrine of discovery is what the explorers received when they were going out exploring, that any land that they came upon that was not Christian, they had the power and the domination of the people, the land, and the resources. If they planted a flag at the base of a river, that the headwaters of that river was their property. They claimed that. So anyway, the domination effect is something that's not just Native Americans. It's something that happens in our whole country with the people, the land, and the resources that still are dominated. Another transformational experience was with Paula Palmer, a Quaker from Colorado who came here 2 years in a row. She gave 3 workshops, and it was called Building Right Relations with Native Americans. And in one weekend, she was able to reach over 100 people. So over 2 years, she reached 200 people. And they were transformed because it was very experiential of history from an indigenous perspective. In 2013, perhaps the most impactful work of Native American Connections was done when we were contacted by Lummi Nation wanting an opportunity to talk to religious leaders, and they wanted us to help them do that research and then be able to speak to them. So Deb Cruz, who you very rarely see, sitting here in the front row, and I looked and found maybe 100 different religious organizations or congregations in Whatcom County. But we told Lummi that if they wanted to speak to the religious leaders, they also needed to speak to the activists who are asking, where are the Lummi on the coal terminal, the proposed coal terminal? So we researched the different organizations, and we found 55 active organizations that were active in climate or pipelines or all sorts of things. And we invited the religious people in the morning, the activists in the evening. 86 people showed up on Memorial Day when the bridge had gone out between here and Seattle in Mount Vernon. And we had over 200 people here in the evening who heard Lummi, Jay Julius and Jewel James, and the leadership for the fight for the coal terminal turned over to Lummi, and then all these organizations and religious organizations worked to support them, and Lummi was able to defeat the proposed coal terminal with their treaty rights of fishing and hunting in their traditional territories. So we can thank Lummi for their work and for the community that came behind them. Yes. So they called that Beyond Coal, and it was their sacred territory that was going to be used for the coal terminal. So, in 2013 to 2014, the Native American Connection Committee worked with the UUA, the Unitarian Universalist Association, College of Social Justice, to plan an immersion week at Lummi Nation. And Unitarians from across the country, representing 10 different congregations or organizations, attended that. And they came to listen and to learn, not with any agenda of their own, but just to learn about the doctrine of discovery, about the history, about what it takes to be a nation. And they were transformed, and Lummi was transformed. They'd never had a group that had come just to listen and just to learn versus having an agenda of their own. And all of those went back to their own communities or their state and worked to form Native American Connections Committee. There was mass action in Massachusetts. There were from Oregon, Idaho, and Washington. So we have now people in Tacoma, Port Townsend, Whidbey Island, Olympia, Shoreline, who started their own Native American Connections Committee, and they're doing beautiful work, getting to know their neighbors and working together on important issues. Now, to finish quickly, 20 years, we created and introduced a land acknowledgement, which you read this morning, and though it was not passed in this congregation, it's spread throughout the state, and other people are doing land acknowledgements. You go to a meeting, and they do a land acknowledgement, and they adapt it to their place. We introduced the idea to the Bellingham City Council, asking them to pass a Coast Salish Day and Columbus Day, which they did. I talked to Patty Murray, and she said, oh, no, we can't have it on Columbus Day. Columbus is such a terrible character. We don't want to connect Native Americans with that day. But 2 weeks later, open the paper, and it says, City Council adopts Coast Salish Day on Columbus Day. We initiated the Native American Heritage Day concert, which is this Friday, from 6 to 8, the day after Thanksgiving. We've done that for 12 years, and it's going to be the best one, so please come if you're available. And we've also nominated 10 Indigenous individuals or Indigenous groups through Whatcom Dispute Resolution Center for Peace Builder Awards. So for 10 years, there have been people or organizations from that represent Indigenous people, and that had never been done before. There had never been Indigenous people recognized.
Through the Social Environmental Justice Committee Special Sunday Collections, we have provided $17,000 to Indigenous nonprofits. And also in special fundraisers for various causes through Native American Connections and UU crowdsourcing like Faithify, we've raised well over $30,000 for Northwest Indian College, Honor Works, Totem Pole Journeys, Lummi Youth Academy, Valve Turners, and British Columbia Camp on Unceded Territory. So in closing, I hope that you can come to the Friday night concert. There are going to be 5 musicians, 4 are Native. Andrew from Lummi with the flute, Mark Nichols, who is on piano, he's a wicked piano, he's a settler, and he works with Children of the Setting Sun. Ben, our music director, with a cello, Swil Kanan with his violin, and J.P. Falcon Grady with his guitar. Now, what I want you to know, it's not Deb and I and the Native American Connections people, it's all of you who attend, who show up, who put your money in the baskets when there's money's being collected. So it's a we. And it's just been a privilege to work with Freddie. Freddie goes back the 20 years, because I met him in 2006 when he was getting ready with the canoe journey. So we're just happy to have him here. And, you know, I have 30 years in Minnesota with this and 20 years here, and I'm 83. I'm not sure. I'm still energized bunny. Keep on working. So thank you very much.
Good morning. Harshka, Siam, Nostalgia. Thank you, my Buff family. Thank you, Reverend Paul, for the invitation. Thank you, my friends and relatives here and online. You are really good medicine for my heart. This week. I don't usually say this online, but today is my spiritual birthday, 1993. Hutchaqualton is my relative here. I'm glad to have Hutchaqualton, Richard Solomon here. The relative here, we're Quellingson clan, so Hutchaqualton is the keeper. I'm just a carrier. And so I just ask that you have a good thought and a good mind, and I'm really glad that our Quahumachton relative is standing over us watching today's beautiful service here. It's true, my heart is glad to be here with each and every one of you, Siam and Istalacha. My birth name is Frederick Francis Lane. I'm named after my great-great-grandfather, Frederick Foam Lane. Some of you might know him. He was a Wacom pioneer immigrating from Scotland in 1881, so all you Scottish. He married my granny, Nellie. She was Lummi. I'm just sharing a little bit of who I am and where I come from, and this is my heritage. So remember, we all have ancestors. We all have heritage. We all have great-great-great-grandparents. And so that's my great-great-grandfather, who I'm named after. You know, what I want to share with you is going to reveal how we're here today. And just as my friend Beth explained, it might even share a little bit of where we're going together. My Indian name is Salkadab. It has no translation to the name. It was carried by my great-granduncle on my mother's side from my Upper Skagit tribal descendancy. I'm 1/4 Upper Skagit, and I'm 3/4 Lummi. My mother was half, and my grandmother Dora was full-blooded Upper Skagit. Thank you to the home for celebrating Native American Heritage Month on this beautiful Thanksgiving week. Our universe couldn't come together without, again, my friend Beth Brownfield and Deb Cruz. Haishka to the two of you. I raise my hands to the both of you. Again, happy Veterans Day. I know it was Veterans Day a few weeks. Do we have any veterans in the room? Let's give our veterans a round of applause for their service and their sacrifice to the nation. My father, Swaloose was his Indian name, Vernon Lane. He was a Korean War veteran, and he was very proud of that. I walk in his footsteps. Vernon and Nancy Lane, I'm their 11th child, born on the 11th day of June in 1968. My friend Deb is going to pass around, first of all, a token that was my dad from Chemawa Indian School, and I'll explain here in a moment. But my parents were my everything. I swore an oath to take care of my parents all the days of their lives. I know there are a few of you in the room that did this gesture, or you might be having someone take care of you in your family, your son or your daughter or grand. Well, I'm that child in number 11 of 12, and I see you. I know you're here. It took me a long time to know who I was and where I come from. And so I want each of you to walk away just with a little bit of heritage of how we're related by the paddles around the world, how we're related by our canoes around the world, how I'm related with my Scottish relatives and my ancestry through the paddle. And a lot of times it's just good to know. I just want you to walk away. Who are you? Where do you come from? And then you can only know that. And after you know that, you'll realize where you're going. My mother's parents were the last of the traditional arranged marriages. Felix Solomon and Dora Williams. They were only 13 years old, if you can imagine, when the arrangement happened in 1904. Grandma Dora didn't speak to Grandpa Felix for the first 5 years of her life. My grandma was real Indian. That's what my cousin Hutchaqualton would say. He's what I call our Quallingson clan, our chief, our leader. And she's real Indian, that's what Grandpa used to say. Life was really tough for Grandma Dora growing up. She learned all the old Lummi ways of the Shalangan, the way of life. She wasn't Lummi, but Grandpa Felix's sisters all taught her how to be Lummi, and the customs, the traditions, and the beliefs. Imagine being born on Orcas Island, my grandma. She was a child. It had to be tough, but like me and like a lot of us, we grew up poor, but we didn't know it. We were kids. We still were growing up, and our parents made the best of everything that we had. My father, Vernon, he learned everything he could from Grandma Dora. He loved her dearly. My dad attended and graduated from Chemawa Indian Boarding School. That was his medal he got competing there. He graduated in 1950, for you old-timers in the room. So I follow in his, footsteps. I follow. And I also attended Chemawa and graduated in 1986, for all you Gen Xers that are in the room. My dad and I, we weren't forced to go to boarding school like in the olden days. It was a choice. It was an opportunity, but it wasn't forced. Chemawa is the oldest continuously operating boarding school in the nation. The history dates back to 1880. If you want to research it, it goes back to Forest Grove in Oregon. Chemawa was my home away from home, though. This was where I met my lifelong family and friends from across the universe. I still hold these friends dearly in my heart to this day. This is where I began to learn the true history of boarding schools. And I thank my teachers, my Aksalas, for truth-telling what wasn't in the history books. I can honestly say that my public relations and steer courage, my stage career was born at Chemawa on that stage. I just want you all to know. We were resilient students, organizing because there was never enough money to fully fund programs and extracurricular activities and field trips. We had to fundraise ourselves, so imagine at an Indian boarding school in the mid-'80s, you know, that's where the resiliency was born in my heart. My late Aunt Violet Hilaire sat on the Chemawa Indian School Board, teaching our generation that you can do this. You have our support. That's the teachers that we grew up with in my time. Our generation has had some incredible aksalas in our language. It's teachers. And they knew that we were going to be the leaders of today. I didn't know it, but they did. Now I talk about Chemawa like I'm proud. Don't get me wrong. I'm a brave. I'm a Chemawa brave. And I'm proud to follow those footsteps of my father. See, in the 80s at boarding school, we were away from home. Imagine, 15 years old, that's where I was as a sophomore. But we adapted parents, moms, dads, uncles, grandmas. So one of my Chemawa dads was Don Pigsley. He graduated in the early 60s and continued a 40-year career at the school. He was yanked and Sioux, sent to Chemawa, but he never went back home after he went to Chemawa. He'd tell me, there's nothing good back home on the res, Fred. So Chemawa became my home. Mr. Pigsley taught me incredible life-changing stories, not just survival stories, but he shared teachings. Teachings that I carry, a lot of his children, Chemawa children, carry on all the paths and journeys and adventures that I'm doing right here today. Mr. Pigsley would laugh. He'd say, that's our medicine. We're the medicine to each other. Sharing our stories. Sometimes we'd cry. He'd tell me stories. They were so sad about Chemawa. That cry is the healing medicine. Look how far you've come. I'm proud of you. Keep going. That's the greatest medicine we can pass on to the coming generations. He'd say that. I remember these words. Be the medicine. Be a messenger of peace. Be an ambassador. You're not perfect. He'd joke and laugh and say, I'm perfect. And we'd laugh, you know, but that was his elder, grandfather, uncle, father way of teaching me. I wasn't his child. We weren't blood. He's buried at Chemawa Indian Cemetery there at exit 260, right by Chemawa Station there. And I always go and visit him there every time I pass by, going down to California. Because I remember these words. I'm sharing them with you because you have teachers too. You have teachers that taught you something, that told you that you're gonna be an educator, you're gonna be a doctor, you're gonna be somebody. That's what they taught us at Chemawa when I was growing up in school there. He sat on the school board there at Chemawa. Again, following the footsteps of my elder ancestors. You know, this is the week to be thankful for your teachers, for your ancestors. Look around. You're never alone. You're never alone. Your ancestors and your grandparents and your parents, they're always with you. They're just someplace in the greater universe. We, here, today, acknowledging that and celebrating that. So who are you? Where do you come from? Where are you going? When I was 1 year old, my father opened the Lummi aquaculture right over here. You see it out in Lummi Bay in 1969. Shirley Temple Black was here, for those that know her. This was the beginning of tribal sovereignty in my lifetime. This was before Bolt, before the fishing wars. This was my father as chairman standing up, the one whose footsteps I followed to Chimawa. He was standing up against the oppression of the government that placed us on our Indian reservation. Vernon was one cool chairman. I'll say that about my dad. He wasn't afraid to go to jail. The FBI was out there. They were going to arrest him as chairman. And he was the one, him and Uncle Penny, they were the ones that closed the aquaculture. They were the ones standing up saying, no, we want something for our people. Our people need this. That was Dad. That was really real, true leadership. Dad would come to me and he'd tell me, keep building bridges, son. I didn't know what that meant. Keep helping the poor. Stay humble. Do what they say can't be done. See, my father was the first to accept me as two-spirited. You can call it gay or however you look at that. And how I'm taught by my ancestors is there are two-spirited men, two-spirited women. There are two-spirited trans. But my dad was the first one, I couldn't believe it, in my family to accept me for who I was. At 21, that's pretty tough. And anyone in here that's a suicide survivor, well, 3 times. But that's because my dad, that's because our teachers and our ancestors, my ancestors. That, like every good son, I wanted to make my dad proud, but little did I know that being the black sheep of the family, that I'd be carrying this powerful message. My father was the oldest of 9, growing up on that island right over there. It's called Portage Island in South Bellingham Bay. Next time you drive around the res, that's Portage Island. That's where, nobody lives there now. But Dad, he was proud of his upbringing, as hard as it was. No lights, kerosene lamps, shearing sheep for those that are farmers, and everything good on the farm. But they had everything they needed. Because Dad was the oldest. He'd tell me about the beatings and growing up the oldest child of an alcoholic. And he'd be honest with me, and he always said that. You say that. It's not that you're proud, that's where we come from. And we're healing. We're acknowledging and we're healing. Dad, he's a saint in my eyes. Later in life, he became ordained, and he'd care for hundreds, if not over thousands, of Lummi funerals and loved ones and families. All my life, he sang with my sisters. He grew up with all the teachings of Grandma and the matriarchs. See, our clans and families were matriarchal in ancient times. I'm Quallington clan, Eagle clan. This comes from my grandpa Felix Solomon, my mom's side. That's how Richard and I are related, just to help you understand a little bit more when you see his eagle feathers and how he's the clan leader. He's our chief, our Quellington clan. This belongs to him. This can hear your voices, your thoughts, your good words. It's traveled many, many miles and seen many places. And it started right here with all you buffsters and hamsters and hammers. That's how we're related. Our women were so powerful back in the day. I'm sharing this because you women in the room, you're the life givers. Even at Chemawa, Dr. Arlene Isaacson, if anybody could find her, and if she's still alive, she saved my life. She told me, don't forget to dream, however old you get. You have a dream, you want to go see the country, you want to come to the gathering of eagles and paddle with us, just live it, do it. She just she makes me so proud. Her doctorate was in humanities, and I think about that, our humanity. Even with the awful history of boarding schools, I'll always remember October 25th, 2024, for those that seen that, when the president, he acknowledged and apologized. I don't care what anybody says about President Biden. For me, that's what we dreamt about at Chemawa. Those kids that are buried there, that's what we dreamt about. But like every good full circle, our languages are coming back, our customs, our traditions, even the canoes. Just with my friend Beth Brownfield in bringing the canoes here to right here, just right down at Whatcom Creek. That's like a dream. In 2002, that's when my Chemawa dreams came true. Dreaming about doing the totem poles was an impossible dream coming true. All the hustle and bustle, and now I know what my elders and the elders that are in the room when they talk about paying your dues. I know what that is now, because it is, and the reward sometimes it's coming right about now. We're seeing the totem has become a Trojan horse of honor and healing, freedom and liberty, protection and pride. The totem pole, it became a beacon of hope for a nation. And so the dreams of that little boy, Fred, that he had at boarding school they were unfolding and traveling to New York, Shanksville, the Pentagon, standing up against pipelines, proposed coal ports, honoring communities, protecting sacred sites. In 2021, we traveled probably the longest totem pole journey in Guinness Book of World Records history. But we traveled to 142 sacred sites, ancient villages, cities, reservations, tribal communities, islands, lakes, rivers, seas, and of course, our beginning has always been here at the home of the buffsters and the hamsters and the hammers here in Bellingham, Washington. It's true. Being present, just placing your hand on the pole, bringing and sharing a little bit of caring, sharing a good hug, all that protected us. You have no idea how many times that our journey was almost sabotaged. Literally, hubcap, tires, everything. But it was your faith, your presence, the presence of the home. That's why I just think the home, it's so powerful. When somebody invites you, go be present. my teachers, they were the medicine. Your presence is the medicine. Those that prayed on the pole, you were the medicine, your thoughts and prayers to all that's happening, from Oak Flat to protecting sacred sites. All those people we shared. So I just want to say, to each of you, don't give up. Don't give up. Keep going. Keep speaking up for the salmon, the Coahomicton, the orcas, the people that live under the water. Who speaks up for the forest? My friends and relatives. Is it you? Is it the next generation? Is it the elders sitting next to you? Maybe. My Puyallup elder, if anybody knows Ramona Bennett, she'd always say, somebody should do something about this. And then she'd say, well, aren't you somebody, Deb? Aren't you somebody, Richard? Aren't you somebody, Fred? She'd say this. You are that someone that she's talking about. You may not all have the answers, but do something. She'd say, try and you fail. You can't ever succeed without failing. She made sure I knew that. And that was Auntie Ramona. So I invite you to paddle a mile in my canoe. We invite you right here, right now, Gathering of Eagles, May 17th through the 26th, 2025. It's our 5th annual celebration. We celebrate our intergenerational cultural heritage. We paddle from Anacortes to Lopez to San Juan to Orcas Island, and then right out here on the res. And then, of course, for the second time in ski to sea history, we'll be right down here. And so I invite you. It's a canoe encampment. We do it with nothing. We do it with nothing but the faith that we have in each other. Of course, I seen the fundraising committee up here earlier, and I had an idea of starting a fundraising committee. And I was like, great idea, it's 6 months away. But sometimes when you're alone, sometimes when you're by yourself, it's moments like that, that the Spirit reveals itself to you. So the medicine is a gathering. The medicine is your circle. The medicine is when you bring your families together this holiday season, even though some of us are Republicans and Democrats and independents. But we still come together. Keep bringing them together. We all have differences. Here's how I speak. Here's how I learned to speak, and I'll share this with you and all your little families, okay? It's a great secret. My father would gather us before Thanksgiving meal. We'd all sit in a circle, and he'd say, all right, everybody, what are you thankful for? And we all had to speak, oh, I hated it. Oh, I just hated it, because I'm number 11, and, you're bottom of the totem pole, and, of course, everybody else has all the good things to say. But even after this election, I sat and mourned a bit. But pick up your paddle. Pick up your paddle. You keep going. We can't stop. I've come to the conclusion that there is no such thing as a coincidence. The universe brought us together right here, right now. And for that, I'm thankful. The old Indian street right up here, if you know, I still call myself an Indian. I was born an Indian, I'll die an Indian. I just want you all to know that. But it was called Indian Road, and it's now called Billy Frank Jr. Road. And that was all our work. That's just a little bit of our work that Beth was talking about. That was just this little bit of blink of time. But Uncle Billy Frank Jr. always says, keep telling your story. Keep up the good fight. I still don't know what that means. And keep speaking for those who can't speak for themselves. Thank you. And blessings to you and your universe, ACM.
Thank you so much, Freddie, for reminding us. As the ushers come forward to receive our, oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, we have a little bit of work to do.
Okay,
Yeah, sorry.
you take this.
Important work, you know.
I'll hold this for you.
We do this in a good way, and we want to just recognize as we're putting our. We're going to sing a verse here, but I just wanted to blanket the home and the pastor. This is the blanket that was on the relative that traveled. The blanket traveled with us throughout the last paddle to Puyallup this last summer. And so we just wanted to just cover you, Pastor, in a little way. It might be kind of dirty, you know, but it lets you know it has the blessings of our relative, our Quellington clan. This is on behalf of our family here at ACM. Go ahead. ACM.
Wow, what a charge to pay it forward. And now I invite you to do the same as the ushers come around to receive your gifts. Everybody has their own resources. We're grateful for whatever each person can bring.
And let's sing with gratitude together now. Number 67 in the gray hymnal, number 67. We sing now together. We have received so many gifts from the earth and from those who came before us. Let us go now and pay these gifts forward. We'll circle around, and then afterward, please build community with us coming down for potluck. So let's circle around for freedom.